Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where we let the inner warrior out to shine in their light. Today, I have the pleasure of a good friend of mine, Antoinette Roze. She is a health and well-being optimizational strategist. She's also a speaker agent strategist, and she is the CEO of the Wellness Production Company. And Antoinette, I just appreciate you wrapping up the year with me. You are the highlighted speaker before we head into 2024, and I just appreciate your time and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Daryl. I'm honored to be on your show. I've loved your work for a long time, and I'm glad to take us out of 2023 and into 2024.
There's a lot of exciting things ahead for both of us. I want to kind of jump into your story because I've known a little bit of the backstory. I know that you have an amazing wellness proficiency, and you are in the field you're in basically because of things that happened in your life and in your family's life. Can you kind of start us, I think, in the early teens or pre-teens where some of this came into your being?
You bet. And it really coincides well with the theme of your show, right? Turn a mess into a message. And of course, I didn't know that terminology back as an early teen, but through a series of things that happened, I lost my father to a tragic accident. So all of us kids were put into foster homes until my mom, could gather herself and get us back together. And it took a while. And during that time, somewhere in there, I started having significant pain when I would walk. But all I wanted was to get our family back together and to get home. So I wasn't going to complain. I just wanted to ride out the time and get back to my family. And then when we were finally reunited, my brothers, my sister, my mom, we were all together again. I didn't want to burden her because now she was raising us on her own. But the pain progressively got worse. It got harder and harder for me to walk, but I hid it. And there came a day, we didn't have a lot of money back in those days. So our school shopping was at the secondhand stores, right? And so we would pick out our clothes, the routine was, and then we would go to a laundromat and wash the clothes, and then we got to try them on. So this particular laundromat just had one of those pedestal sinks in the bathroom with a little mirror on over. And so I pulled over the trash can. It was such that I could teeter on both sides to see my outfits. And when I came down off the trash can, it was just like zing, something happened and I could barely walk. And so I came out of the bathroom. My mom saw it on my face. She gathered up all the kids, all the clothes. We went straight to the emergency room, and I didn't leave a hospital for a year. And then after that, I was in and out for another year. So what happened was they found that I had advanced cancer. It had eaten away my pelvic area, and scolded my mom because how could you not know? Right? How could you not have helped this child? It was too late. It was too late for anything. It was too late for chemo. It was too late for radiation. It was too late to help me. So essentially, they were going to put me in this form of a body cast and send me home and, take me to Disneyland, do whatever, say our goodbyes. At that time, they were giving me 6 weeks. And a team, thankfully, this was a city hospital, and a team somehow in a university hospital a few hundred miles away had gotten word of this young girl who was being sent home to, say her goodbyes. And they petitioned to do some experimental things on me. So again, I was shipped hundreds of miles away from my family. And my mom, of course, then was a single mom because we had lost my father. And I was pretty much alone. Like they would try to visit me, but within that year, it was very few and far between that they could make that trip. So really, the children in that ward became my family. That became my world and my home. When you're that young, you adapt, and that becomes your family. And so I was the unlucky one who had very little hope of survival, um, getting my treatments, and what they were doing on me hadn't been done outside of a lab. I
Mm,
was the first human for this um, integrative kind of outside of the box treatment that they did. Of course, I was a child. I didn't understand any of that. All I understood was I'm away from my family. Get me better. I want to get back, right? But the lucky children that would come in. Now, this children's ward, it had cancer children, children with kidney issues, anorexic children. Like it had all different kinds. But I was always put in a room with other children with cancer. And so I would see them coming in just like me, looking like a normal kid who needed something done, right? I stayed looking like a normal looking kid, although I was relegated to laying flat for a while, and then I could sit up, and then I could finally get into a wheelchair. But as far as I wasn't swelling, I wasn't losing my hair, I didn't have boils all over me. My gums weren't turning purple. I wasn't moaning in pain at night, and it was pretty horrific to hear the sounds and see the sights where you recognize the child when they came in, and then they were unrecognizable just a short time later, once their treatment started. And I remember as a child thinking, well, why weren't their parents told they could try something else first? Like there's something else they could have tried before that. And of course, I didn't realize they wouldn't experiment on kids that kind of mainstream protocol could possibly work on. But that obviously really stuck with me because I was the one that was supposed to not make it. And I was very clear about it. Everyone was very open about it. They were the lucky ones who had a chance. Yet I got to leave the hospital alive, and a good number of them never got to do that.
and how old were you?
I was a young teen. I really need to go back and do the math. And just it was a 3-year process in all. I believe I was 12 when it started, but I really do want to go back and get the exact math. So, because when I share the story, I'm always like, I really need to get the math, and then I would go on to my next thing and I forget to do it.
But
Um,
you must have made a lot of friends in that 3-year period of time, already being away from your family. So the psychology of losing somebody at that young of age, was there anybody to help you understand that, or did you have to struggle
what
through?
they would always say is that they were moved to a different ward. I didn't understand that at first, but as I started getting more savvy, I realized they were moved to ICU. And then as I got older, I realized, it just didn't work out well. Um, so no, that's a really good question. I mean, we would have there was a special room, it was called the activity room, where we would go and socialize and color, do different things. And I would have a nurse come in and wheel me to the bathroom, right? And I would get a bath every now and then. But as far as sitting down and talking it out with me, talking my feelings out, even just the feelings of being separated from my family, it was a year straight, and then the others was on and off. But um, I don't remember even one instance where somebody sat down and said, how are you handling all of this?
Wow.
Is there any way we can support you? It is just, you're just doing what you need to do. I remember there was a few surgeries where they couldn't put me to sleep because there was a real danger of me bleeding to death.
Mhm.
So I had to be awake. And the whole thing that they were doing was up on a big screen because it was a university hospital, and the interns or the students were all lined all around this operation room watching. it was horrible. It was just horrible. And I would just turn my head so I couldn't see the screen. And I just started singing Jesus Loves Me, Amazing Grace. I was just singing those over and over. And I remember after this one, because I would feel the tugging and the pulling. You couldn't feel the pain really, but it was just, it was just awful. And every one of them were in tears by the end. Even the doctor, I wasn't trying to inspire anybody. I just wanted to get through it, get out of there, do what you need to do and get me home, right? But in that process, of course, you just meet people that forever alter your life. I remember when there was after one of those surgeries, the prognosis wasn't good. And my mom was there for that time. For whatever reason, they wheeled me out to the hallway. We had to sit and wait and wait and wait for the doctor. The doctor finally came up to give us some news. It wasn't good news. My mom started crying. I'm still just numb. Like, I still don't really believe that this is the end for me, and, all the things. But what was really neat is you see such beauty. You see such beauty in people in times like that. And there was this man who wheeled himself up. No, there was this man who we saw wheeling past us at that time. And then he wheeled himself up to us in the cafeteria later that day. Maybe it was the next day. So it's all blurry right now, but while my mom was still there. And he said, I saw you, I saw what happened. And I just really want to encourage you to not lose hope, don't give up. And his head was shaven and he had like these scars all over his head. He had some sort of probably brain cancer. But in all of his pain and in everything that he was going through, he really gave, a lot to us. And so what I took from that and what I go from for my whole life is, even if you have one more day, it is a very valuable day, because that one thing, that one way you can touch someone can have a ripple effect that you have no idea how far it goes. And this man wasn't a span of a 5-minute talk even. I still remember him. I still see his face, and I still remember there's always hope.
I
And
love that. And I relate to that from my own experience with my wife, who had her own traumatic experiences. And she has been the one who taught me that what that man taught you. Like, when she was on her deathbed, I remember vividly, and I'll remember this for my rest of my life. We came across somebody on a GoFundMe that needed some help. It was some kind of tragic accident. They were a younger person. And her only concern was, how can we give to that person? And I told her, and I vividly remember telling her, and excuse me for the language that I'm going to tell you, but I'm just trying to keep you alive. And she says, it doesn't matter. We need to give to them. And
oh my gosh.
and
Yeah.
so the next thing I know, I'm, typing out a check to the GoFundMe thing, right? But that's the kind of grace and beauty that's why all the things I said in your intro come forward, because you know what it's like to be near the end, and you know what it's like to give back. I'm going to ask you a question that popped into my head based on psychology, though. Being alone from your family, both in the orphanage or foster care, wherever, and then in this hospital at such a young age, and then being witness to person after person after person passing on. As a teenager moving into your young adult life, did it make you guarded towards building close connections with other people, or because of that man, did you go the opposite way and just embrace life in general?
It's a really excellent question. So first of all, just to clarify, my sister and I were kept together, which was amazing. So we were in multiple foster homes, but we got to stay together, and my brothers stay together. So that, that was a little bit of a saving grace. I don't think it made me guarded at all. I love relationships. I love people, but what it did make me feel, and that's just, as far as that man, that's just one little vignette of all the gifts and beauties that just
God brought.
culminate
Yeah.
into life is worth living, right? People are worth loving. Life is worth living. But I think that whole experience from my father's passing on made me feel like in any second, everything can fall apart. Any second, like things might be going okay, but any second, everything can fall apart. And I really lived in that mode for a long time. And I think what it did for me is I've got to do everything I do way better than anybody else. I've got to make sure everything's taken care of, got to make things solid and stable. Right. And two, which is not a bad quality, but in excess, it's a cover up, right? For a fear, a deep rooted fear that's creating that lack of solidness within you. Yeah.
So how did you transition from someone almost losing their life into someone who is now a health and wellness expert and an advocate for others? How did you, because that's a big jump, because some just accept the gift and move on to whatever other direction, but you dove into what actually cured you, health and wellness.
Right. So I would call myself a health and wellness nerd. I don't have any letters after my name to make me an authority on that, except that I knew the moment I left that hospital, especially the first time, I did have to go back, but when I knew I got to go home, I thought about all of those children that didn't get to go home. And so I knew, I can still see many of their faces. I knew I wanted to represent their faces, and I wanted to represent the voices that they weren't going to have going forward. And the way that I translated that was, if their parents had only known that there could have been some other options. And then so I translated that to, I'm going to make sure that everyone knows all of their options before they make a decision, a life-changing decision, whether it's a direction you're going to take in your life, a choice you're going to make with regards to what you're going to do about a health element, whatever it is. So my college degree is in business management, computer information systems, when it was like DOS, if anybody remembers that at all. Yep. And PR and marketing. And so I was going to use that business degree to do something that was going to make sure that the other side is heard, right? That more voices are heard. I love the white coats. I want them there. If I'm in a car accident and need to be stitched up, give me a doctor who knows how to do that. That's what I want. But as far as outside the box or other, especially preventative, that's not where they're trained. We use them for preventative, but that's not really, they're really emergency. They're trained to be reactive, not preventative, and that's okay. We need that. But I wanted people to we can turn on any show, at least in America. I think this is banned in a lot of other countries, but you see every kind of medication you could take for whatever you want, right? You can see billboards about it, but you never see, rarely ever see an integrative doctor saying, try this. Right. If it's outside the box, they're just not going to go there. So all of that to say, I decided that I was going to use my talents and my voice to get other voices heard. And I started off doing that as a producer. I was a producer for close to 2 decades. Really, really loved doing that. I produced very small to large to massive events. One of the largest of my events was the Texas Natural Wellness Expos. I was very proud of that work. I absolutely loved it. But what I saw was my impact stopped at the number of events I could create a year. And even though thousands, literally thousands attended, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. And at the same time, I saw speaker after speaker get up there. Many times they're doctors or practitioners of some sort or mindset experts, whatever. And they had all of this brilliance. But number one, they had no idea how to pace it out. And number two, they had no idea how to monetize those engagements in a significant way. So that told me that that's not going to be sustainable. They might talk here and there, but it's not going to be a major part of their business plan and their revenue model. And I wanted it to be. So for instance, a doctor or practitioner would get up on stage and they would pour the whole pot of pasta of their knowledge all over everybody's heads, right? And then they'd want to give them more. And they're like, that was
Right.
amazing. My favorite meal in the world, but I can't do one more bowl. Like that's the last way you want to leave your audience,
Yeah.
right? You want to give them a bowl of nourishment that they can ingest and feel a transformation.
Hmm.
And then as you're leaving and you leave them an invitation for a journey with you, then they're like, heck yeah, I want my next bowl of
Hmm.
nourishment, right? That's how you want to leave an audience. And very few of them really understood that. And I knew that I could show them a framework that would completely change the way that they delivered their brilliance, right? Their curated knowledge after years of that they alone, their perspective, what they've discovered, their case studies aren't going to ever be like somebody else in the very same profession,
Hmm.
right? So if they retire or graduate to the next level of our lives, all of that goes with them unless they deliver it, right? They can write a book and a book is great, but honestly, nothing replaces you,
Hmm.
you really giving that message. And so I just really got to the point where that's the shift that I was going to make. It was hard because I had really built up a pretty incredible production career, right? And I had some very big names lined out for the years ahead. And I had toyed with selling the company. But each time I had that encounter, they were going to completely change my model, which wasn't okay with me. So I just kind of took the name with me. It's still Wellness Productions, and now I pretty much only represent speakers in the health, well-being, and optimum performance space. There are times where I'll still do a little producing, but really it's all about, and in that way now it's exponential who I get to reach,
Hmm.
right? Because getting these speakers on other people's stages, there's just, I can't even, only God Himself knows, right? How many lives are changed through that.
Truly a ripple effect for sure. How did that change go over with your husband?
He's been so supportive. Yeah, he was very reluctant to have me. He wanted me to do both. I knew there was no way in heck I could do both, right? At the same time, we were moving my mom from California to Texas to take care of her full time. And and we had a bed and breakfast and 2 retreat centers. So I just knew things had to give. And what had to give was the really labor intensive things. And that was the retreat centers, the bed and breakfast, because my mom was taking part of that anyway. And and my events. And he was a little reluctant to the beginning, but when I expressed to him my vision and what I see, um, he came around. I mean, we still kind of lament sometimes, and that was a that was an amazing journey. And oh my goodness, talk about the people you get to meet. University, like I should have a PhD in wellness just by these people I got to learn under and be in the midst of. I love those days, and it's never going to be the same like that. It's different now. I get to work with brilliant, amazing people, and you always glean from their solutions and the way their perspectives. And I feel really privileged in that. I feel very privileged to have a career that I love. And that all started from something that seemed unimaginable, like
Mm.
a horrible thing, right?
Yeah,
And it changed the whole course of my life for
you
for
truly
what it was
turned your
meant.
mess into a message that's
There you go.
bigger than you. And you also, because of what you went through and outside the box thinking for therapy, got an opportunity to implement that with your own mother. Can you tell me about that story? Because I know you've shared it with me, but not my audience. So can you tell me that
Yeah.
story about your mom?
So that was multi-layered. I got a call one day from my sister, basically saying that my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and at the time she was in California. And so she was surrounded by my brothers and my sister, and all of them are, allopathic, whatever the doctor says do. Of course, I wanted other things, at least to be integrated in there, but they were all about whatever the doctors want to do. So I was just supportive from afar. And so they started their journey on her, and it led to, actually, thankfully, it led to a massive infection where they couldn't continue treatments. So my siblings know, that I'm all about healing and wellness, and I do have some real skill. I'm not certified in anything, but I just from research and practice, right? I have skill in doing that. So they flew my mom here to Texas, and Daryl, I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought I knew. I'm like, yes, we can do this and we can do this. I go to the airport to pick her up, and I didn't even recognize her. But whatever they had done to her, she was swollen, she was gray, she was shaky, she could barely walk. And I remember almost falling to my knees as I was walking up, and I saw her, because she was wheeled out by the attendants. And I remember thinking, like, who the bleep do I think I am? Like, how are we even going to get her in the car? Right. I was just like, who do I think I am? I was like so confident. And then I saw her, and she's very Italian. She wouldn't even argue with me. Just like, shoot, she's really not doing well. She's not even challenging me on anything. Um, so we just went to work. We went to work with what we knew to do. And I really only got to do like 5 of all the hundreds of things I wanted to do. Number one, she wasn't open to a lot of it. And number two, she wasn't physically able. And number three, there was a lack of funds for some of what I wanted to do. So we just did these 5 pretty simplistic things. And honestly, within a week, her color was back and she was arguing with me. So that was a really good sign. Um, and number, and then in week 2, we were going on walks together, which was incredible. And then, week by week, there was just huge jumps in her improvement to where by week 7, her oncologists from California were relentless. They were texting her, calling her, the whole fear factor
Right.
was, what are you doing? This is your one window of opportunity. You need to get back here. We need to get it going. Um, I wanted her for 3 months because I know that I could completely change her over cellularly in 3 months. But we got to week 4. Let me make sure I have this story right. Yes, we got to week 4, and she was feeling so good that she wanted to go back and go let them go back to work on her, right? And I was just begging. I wanted more time, so I said, "Well, Mom, let's see a doctor here and just see how you're doing, and they can get the records to your oncologist. Let's just try that first." So that was a day from hell. Am I allowed to say hell?
Yeah, you can say everything you want. So
That's about as crass as I get. Um, Anyhow, they put her, so she was diabetic, and she hadn't eaten because they didn't want her to eat for the certain tests. And we were there for from in the morning till like 7 p.m. at night, and they wouldn't let her eat. And I could barely, I had to sneak her water. Like she wasn't even really supposed to drink water. I'm like, she's gonna get water. I'm gonna give my mom water. But it was just this whole fear factor where they were telling us that they were really concerned that the cancer had spread to her nervous system. She probably wasn't going to be leaving this hospital. And I probably needed to be calling my siblings. And I was like, again, flipping, what? Who
Mhm.
do I think I am? What am I going to say to my siblings? What have I been thinking? Who am I? I had no business trying to help my mom. I'm not a doctor, um, I was just going through that and just thinking I was going to have to face my siblings to have them fly out and say their goodbyes. Um, and they put us through hours and hours of this. So we'd do this one test, and then that wasn't enough. And then they would do another test. And every time the doctor would come into the room, okay, I was sitting here, my mom was on the gurney thing there. And instead of going there to talk to her so he could see us both, he would put his butt right in my face, back to me to talk to her because he knew I'm
Mhm.
one of those weirdies, right? That believes in integrative
Yeah.
therapies. So I would get up, go around the gurney, do you call it that? The bed,
Yeah.
and face him. And I would just look at him
Mhm.
as he was talking to my mom. And it was always just kind of petting her and having his hand on her. And got to the final round, and she's by then, she's kind of sitting up, and he has his hand on her thigh. And he's like, Catherine, and I'm just bracing myself. Oh, bleep, oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
ugh. And he said, you really do need to get back to California. And so she said, you mean it's spread, it's in the nervous system. And I'm thinking, California, they just said she wasn't going to be able to leave the hospital. And he said, no, actually, we can't find the cancer. We know it's there. It has to be there because we see it. Like I brought all the films and everything, but we're not finding it. You need to get back to your team of oncologists. I have never in my life felt like pounding a doctor for putting us through what he put us through. Like
Well,
I
they were trying to
envisioned
find it.
myself just boom,
Yeah.
like he would not even look at me in the face. He wouldn't even look at me. And how dare them scare us to death, literally, like almost literally,
Yeah.
all those hours
They were
thinking it
determined to
had
find it. That's why they.
spread to this nervous system, right? And they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So I said, we're done. I'm taking my mom. Oh no, there's some, we're leaving. We're done. And well, you're going to have to sign these papers. That's fine. We'll sign them. We're leaving. So I took her. She wanted Krispy Kreme donuts on the way home, which I didn't fulfill that wish, but we got her some good food. Um, and then I was able to talk her into staying longer so that we could continue our work together. And I got her as far as 3 more weeks, and she insisted, and there was no fighting. She was going to go back to her oncologist who've been calling her every day.
Yeah.
And they're always, they're like your best friends and they love you and they're so concerned about you. And I don't doubt that that's what they're feeling, but
Mhm.
I knew that was not, she needed to stay and heal. She was healing, it was working. Why, anyway. So we, you know, sent her back to California. And then my sister had to start through the whole journey. So I started through the battery of tests and tests and tests. And then it got to the point where they said that they were going to have to, she was going to have biopsy, another biopsy. And my sister's like, well, oh, you see something? You found something? You're going to biopsy? Well, we haven't, but we really need to cover all the bases. So again, they go in early in the morning. My mom hasn't eaten anything. And then the surgeon comes out and he's like, Catherine, I'm sorry. I know you're ready. You're prepped for surgery. But are you ready to be prepped for surgery? But I need to run another test. And my sister's like, what other test on this planet can there be at this time? Yes, we are very Italian. And, and they let him run another test. And then he comes out where they are. And again, hand on thigh, Catherine, I'm sorry, but I can't perform the surgery. And my mom was like, oh, you mean it has spread to the nervous system? He's like, no, I can't in all good conscience perform this surgery because there's no cancer. I don't know where it went. I can't explain it. It's just not there. And that was it. Then they were able to schedule the knee surgery, which turned into too much anesthesia and wrong knee. So they had to do it twice. They put a man's knee in, which apparently there's a difference.
Oh, geez.
And the anesthesia gave her dementia, coupled
Oh,
with her diabetes and her Krispy Kreme donuts.
oh my
Um,
goodness.
anyway, so then we wound up moving her out here, and I took care of her the last 7 years of her life, and it was beautiful, beautiful experience. But what finally did take her, we believe, was COVID. She
Mm,
was she was the perfect target for that. Any bad flu
right.
for somebody. Um, and it was just before everything was COVID. It
Mhm.
was December 22nd of 2019. We had all of her different memorials in Texas and California. And then like the week after, lockdown, nobody could do anything, go anywhere. And then anytime you had a sniffle, it
Right.
was COVID. So, but prior to that, there was something going on in China, something. And they put me through heck trying to figure out what was wrong with her. She had this weird cough. I'd gotten back from a business conference. I brought back the very nasty cold to all of us. All three, my husband, myself, and my mom, got horribly sick where we're crawling to each other's beds, right, to help each other. And now we realize it probably was COVID, but Robert and I were stronger, younger. It was a bad flu. We got over it. My mom actually got over it first, but then she slipped back in, and they were calling it pneumonia,
Mm,
and they were treating it wrong.
mm,
If they would have realized, they could have boosted her immune system, and I believe she'd still be with us because she was getting stronger and stronger by the day.
nope.
Being with us, she was just not compliant. Like she was going to eat what she wanted to eat, and so that was not great for her diabetes, and that makes you susceptible to more things. But that's the story.
But but I do need to ask you, what were the 5 things that you did for your mother that transformed her life?
They're going to seem very, very simplistic, but this is what we
Sometimes
did.
that's all we need.
So we put her on a very high fat, high protein, very low carb way of eating.
Hmm.
Um, and she was actually compliant because she got all the good, fatty, yummy foods.
Yeah.
And I was this was one day I am making a movie, and it's going to be called Moving Mama Pileggi, because it was the little vignettes of things that happened along the way were really hilarious. But we would, I'd take her on outings, and she would sneak and buy like the opposite food, like the foods that were going to feed the cancer, right? And we're trying to
Right.
get her over the cancer. And I wasn't Gestapo over everything, but during that period of time, we wanted to get her out of danger, right? She had aggressively growing cancer. We needed to get her out of danger. So, and then she would go into her little bungalow that we had for her and hide it. And so when she was over here watching television, I would sneak over there and I would find it, and then I would hide it. And then she would learn, and then she would yell at me, and then I'd give her some really yummy fatty food, and then she'd be okay. So that was a big thing, is the diet, right? It all starts with what we put in our body, what we're feeding. Cancer cannot live on fat. It thrives on sugar,
Mm,
and carbs create sugar, right? So I did not keep her on that restrictive diet once she was in the clear. I would have loved to. She just was not going to be compliant. She needed her pasta and all the things. And I want her to enjoy life and enjoy everything. So for her, food was love. But during that time, I was military,
yeah.
and so that was a big deal. And then another thing that we did, I can't say that we did in Texas because it wasn't legal, but for all of those who are facing something like that, please look into Delta 9 oil. It's basically the essential oil of cannabis, and it's like you can get it if it's legal in your state, you can get it in dispensaries,
Mhm.
but usually not as potent as you need it. So if you know somebody who uses Phoenix tears, the Phoenix tears ways of making it, that's the one you want. But it's just a drop where we would put it underneath her tongue at night so she wouldn't ever feel high or
Yeah.
anything. You want the full spectrum. Don't take the psycho
Yeah.
part out of it, right? Because that's the carrier. It needs all of it. Anyway, it would help her sleep at night. She wasn't a good sleeper, so that kind of did double duty. It got her to get good rest, but then it also has very curative properties while you're sleeping. Your body is in curing mode for
Mhm.
all of us, right? That's why sleep is so important. So it got her the sleep that she needed, and then it helped with the healing. So that was it works with your cannabinoidal system. We have nervous systems, we
Mhm.
have adrenal system, we have, all the different systems. And I think it was Harvard, one of the big medical universities, in recent years, when I say recent years, probably within the last 15 years, have discovered that we all have cannabinoidal systems.
Mhm.
And this compound found in cannabis is really the only precursor, or the only thing that can help that system do its job. And from what I understand, I'm not a doctor, this is just
Yeah.
from what I understand, that system helps all the other systems in your body operate well and communicate with each other. So a drop of that at night, Texas. And we did this concoction every morning. It was from the Gerson Institute. It was a flax seed concoction that mimics tamoxifen, the cancer drug, right?
Mhm.
And it was essentially some flaxseed that was soaked in water and then heated very, very lightly until it was this little glop. It was just a couple tablespoons. It was like this little gelatinous
Yeah.
glop.
Yeah.
Didn't taste like anything. It had the worst texture. My mom was a texture person, but she would get that down every morning, that glop down every morning. And you were supposed to have it with nothing else, so you couldn't hide it. And then you had to wait a half hour before eating anything else. So she would take that glop every morning. I was really glad she was compliant about that. And then one of my speakers during my events was Dr. Tullio Simoncini. He's an Italian oncologist, totally not a natural-minded oncologist. As a matter of fact, for all of my speakers, I would get them a suite with kitchen, and then I would stock their kitchen with healthy foods. And when he just arrived, his first call was basically, where's the white powder, basically sugar, and where's the soda, the fizz? And I'm like, oh, there's mineral waters in your refrigerator. No, he wanted Coke, right? He wanted all the CRAP. He wanted the icky stuff. So he really wasn't health minded, but he had been an oncologist for 40 years and he got tired of killing his patients. And so he got a grant, especially when he moved to pediatrics. He was like, I've got to figure this out. He got a grant went to the lab downstairs, wherever, and he found that all of his patients with cancer had a very high amount of yeast in their systems. So he came up with a way to flush your system to get rid of the yeast, and he was curing people.
Wow.
And so he was getting a lot of recognition. And so the hospital started sending him the patients where they'd done their work on them. There was no more ability to help them. And so he would basically put a tube in and flush the area that had cancer, even in the brain. And he was saving people. There came a time where there was this woman who she was beyond saving, but he tried. And she didn't make it, and that was their ticket to take his license away, sadly. So he has actually met several of my friends in a hotel room in Italy. That's the only way he can practice anymore, sadly.
Wow.
But all of that to say, I learned a lot from him. He had spoken at several of my events. I'd gotten to spend some really incredible time with him. And I couldn't do the flush thing, but what I could do was the sodium bicarbonate,
Mhm.
basically baking soda,
Yep.
2 pennies worth of baking soda, tea that warmed up that she would drink. And so, um, of course, the medical establishment isn't going to like that we can cure people with a couple pennies worth of sodium bicarbonate, right? That's just not
Trader,
complicated or expensive
Tra-
enough.
Trader Joe's will like you, but not.
Um, and then we started taking her to, well, the sunshine. I made sure she had sunshine every single day. I made sure to wet the grass and have her put her bare feet in the grass.
Earthing.
I took her to some meditation classes and I would sit outside and do meditation. She wasn't really going for that, but we tried
Yeah.
for meditation. But she did get sunshine every day. And of course, I removed her from all stress. She had no stress, no concerns. We took care of everything. So that was huge for her. And then just grounding herself in the ground.
Hmm.
And then we also were taking her to an applied kinesiologist, basically a chiropractor who doesn't crack backs. He uses the activator gun and the meridian system and just keeps things flowing, pulls trauma out of certain areas of your system so that there can be full communication and your body can heal itself. And really, that's pretty well it. I mean, I would sprinkle in things like certain supplements and, different things, but those were the main things we did during those weeks.
That's awesome. And um, my um, my hat off to you for just outside the box thinking, going to do whatever is necessary, and finding a way to naturally heal your mom to a point where the
Yeah,
cancer.
and just let me say, because I know you and I need to say this, this is not a protocol for anyone, right? This is what I did for my mom,
will
and
work
it
for you.
worked. But I didn't know if I was just hoping it was going to work. It was all I could do, right? Just get her stronger. It surpassed my hopes. I had hoped that it would at least get her to the point where they weren't going to do the aggressive chemo and radiation. Oh my goodness, they couldn't even find the cancer. Like,
Yeah.
wowza. Our bodies were so fearfully and wonderfully made that our bodies, just given that little bit of leg up, can our bodies are miraculous. We just need to give it a chance to be. And it's surpassed, but I just want to make it clear that
Absolutely.
this is not
Yep. Absolutely.
a
We
plan for anyone. This is just what I did.
it's what worked for your mom, and there's no endorsement of any of it beyond what worked for you. But I will say that if if the big pharma and the big food would get the heck out of our lives, we'd actually have healthier lives, because it is the food that we're eating that's poisoning us so that they can keep us on the medicine, not to cure us, but to keep us sick enough to keep coming back for them. And anything anyone can do that's natural, that's healthy and healing, kudos and hats off to them. I've seen it with my own wife and her illnesses, and I've seen it in numerous stories like yours and your mom's. And it wasn't conventional medicine that kept you on this earth, and it wasn't conventional medicine that kept your mother alive. So
Right.
hats off to all of that.
So dialing back to one day in our lives, right? How valuable just one day in our lives. My mom got 7 more years. I really think she would still be with us if we understood what was happening to her, in that last month of her life. But I had 7 more years with her, and boy, did I make a lot of it. I was traveling her to all the cousins and nieces and nephews she hadn't seen. I was traveling her back to California at least twice a year so that she could see her great grandchildren. And those great grandchildren, they got to know their great grandmother. How many of us get to know our great grandparents, at least this generation? Because everybody's like either dying way before their time or they're limping to the end, right? Way before their time. That's not how we're meant to be. We're supposed to go out fully
Yep.
clear minded, fully body abled, like we all have the same terminal disease, AGE, right?
Right.
We're all gonna go at some point, but let's go fully able-bodied and fully in the world. And so for those 7 years, every single day and she was fun. She was spunky. She would challenge anybody. She was the master of everything, right? If you're a financial advisor, she's a financial advisor, right? She knows nothing about money, but she's going to tell you how to do it. And she brought so much life and light to everyone for 7 years. Her great grandchildren now have a memory of her. Those are valuable years. So if you don't give up, don't think, oh, I've got this diagnosis, it's over. It's not over till the fat lady sings, right? It's
Yeah.
not over. Every single day counts. I have seen people with no arms and no legs dance,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can make excuses for ourselves and give ourselves the ticket for just riding out the last bit of our life, or you could just make the most of every single day you have, wherever you are, whatever condition of life you're in. There, you have value. You
And
have value every moment you're breathing. If
how
you
was
can go up to a mirror and blow on it, and it makes a fog, you have value.
and how old was she when she passed?
72.
72.
Too
Well,
young. Too young.
very, very young, and blessings to all that you did for her. Um, as we kind of close this up a little bit, what other than that great advice you just gave, what is the biggest takeaway you found from your own healing journey and thousands of others that you've witnessed?
Don't take the first opinion. And never make a decision based on fear. The worst decisions are based on rushed fear. And I'm sorry, but the medical system is set up like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's set up to scare you into a decision. I don't believe that the average doctor is ill-intended. I definitely don't. But I do believe that the system is very broken.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that for you to take a step back and make an informed decision, even if it takes you a couple months to make that informed decision, even if they're telling you you don't have a couple months to take it if you feel like you need it, because I'll guarantee you your quality of life will be better, even if you go at the end of those two months, right? Because they would have made it miserable for you
Right.
during those last 2 months. So the two things I would say is, don't just wait for people to give you the answers. Go find them. Your life is valuable. You go digging, like pull up, overturn every rock, look at every single option, lay it all out on the table, get centered, pray, talk to those that you trust the very most, who are going to be open to whatever decision. They're going to be open and respectful, whatever decision you make. But just know what all of your options are before you go any direction. Don't say, I'm going to do this because this one doctor told me to do it, or because all the doctors are saying this is the only way to do that. No, there's a lot of other ways you can approach any disease, any mental illness, right? Any emotional
Mm-hmm.
struggle that you're going through. You can take the pill, or there are other things you can do, or you can do both. Integrative is can be pretty powerful as well. So know that your decision is your own, because there's definitely healing power in that alone. That this decision, you're not just doing it because, oh my gosh, you were scared into doing it, and I'm just hoping for the best, right? No, you know that you've made the decision, and then own it, and let them do their part, but do your part too. If it
Right.
means making some lifestyle changes, you're worth it. No cake tastes better than a vibrant life tastes,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have to give that up for whatever reason, it's not worth your quality of life. I don't care. It's just not. I don't care if it's your niece's wedding. It's not worth it. She'll love you.
Yeah.
Just dance with her. She's going to love you, right? And so I guess that those are me. Just get informed, and it's okay. People say, "Oh, Google University, that's such a horrible thing." No, information is very empowering, and right now we have access to infinite information. And that is, yes, through a portal. You can use Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever you want to use. We have the Library of Congress. Like, we have everything at our fingertips. Do your research, get tenacious. You're worth it. And then also, don't be scared into a decision. Take your
Well,
time and know your options.
I would say that it's important to, especially in the medical world, in the medical community, do your research outside of the US documents, because there are studies and protocols that other countries are using successfully that our country won't even recognize, because it'll heal you and not keep you on the sick wheel. So if you're going to do your research, don't just stick to the US studies, go outside of that and find all of the information. And I speak from personal experience in that vein. Two things that popped into my head as you were speaking. One is a saying that I heard a pastor say, that, a lot of people are waiting for God, and they pray and they just sit and wait. And he said, but what if God's waiting for you? So you have to do your part in order for it to work.
Yeah.
And then I had heard another say, God won't do for you what he must do through you. And I think you're a living example of that.
Mm.
So, Antoinette, I am thrilled that you're in my tribe. I'm thrilled that you're wrapping up 2023 with me. What's new on the horizon for 2024 for you?
Well, I'll open the door for some new speakers for 2024. So if you are a speaker, or have the aspirations of wanting to be a speaker, it all starts with an interview with me. Just let me interview you and see if I really see something there. And I'd be happy to have that conversation with anybody who wants it.
Perfect. We'll throw in whatever links you have when we highlight this interview. As part of a warrior spirit and as part of my tribe, what does a warrior spirit mean to Antoinette?
Tenacity. Don't. When somebody says no, say yes. That's pretty much been the story of my life. Even when I was starting my bed and breakfast, I had friends driving by my little country place. Ha ha ha, she thinks she's going to make that into a bed and breakfast. I did, and it was big, and it was amazing. And then they're all asking me to help them turn their little cottages into little B&Bs, right? And so when people tell you you can't, know you can. Know your own gut and trust in your own gut. There's wisdom in many counselors, great, but there can also be confusion in there, and it can make you second guess yourself. So don't look for other people to give you answers. Very, very similarly to that message that you just gave, right? You've already innately have the answers. It's great to lock arms with people and have that momentum and hear their innovations and maybe their perspectives. But at the end of the day, don't wait around. Get out of waiting mode for someone to give you the answers. You've already got it. Just figure it out. Get out there. Do it. Don't take no for an answer. That's it.
Well, I appreciate you joining me, and thank you very much. And I look forward to what you do in the future. And I'm glad I'm part of what you're doing, and to know a quality person like yourself. So thank you for joining me today, and may you have a blessed rest of this year and 2024.
Thank you, Daryl. You have an amazing end of 2023 and a very incredible 2024. I wish that for each of your audience members as well. And I'm so honored to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great night.
Ciao, ciao.